Welcome back to the deep dive. We dig through the sources, pull out those key insights, and hopefully help you feel genuinely well-informed. Today, we've got a story that honestly sounds almost made up.
It really does.
Okay, picture this. It's 4 a.m., October 10th, 1999. A plane lands in Anchorage, Alaska. It's freezing cold, still dark, and off steps Hugo Chavez, then president of Venezuela. Not just him, but this huge group needing 43 hotel rooms.
43 rooms. Wow.
All this, apparently, for a quick breakfast before flying on to China. So, why Alaska? At 4 a.m.
Yeah, that's the kicker, isn't it? Chavez, here's the leader of this major oil nation, Venezuela.
Yeah.
But a nation kind of known for, let's say, not managing its oil money well.
Right.
He wasn't there for the scenery. He flew all the way to Anchorage for one very specific meeting. He wanted to talk to the folks running the Alaska Permanent Fund.
Oh, okay.
He was trying to figure out how Alaska, another place with tons of oil, had set up this system, this fund that actually sent cash, checks, directly to everyone living there.
A model he wanted to copy, presumably?
You'd have to think so, yeah. He saw something working in Alaska he wanted for Venezuela.
And that's really the core of our deep dive today. We're looking into this amazing model, how Alaska uses its natural resource money to directly benefit every single resident. And, the economic effects that came with it, which were pretty surprising.
Definitely.
So the big questions are, what did Chavez actually learn that morning? And maybe more importantly, why didn't he ever manage to do something similar back home?
And I think the answers really get into how this fund was set up, its whole structure. It's quite unique.
Okay, so let's rewind. Where did this all begin for Alaska?
We have to go back to 1968, January. That's when they hit the jackpot. Discovered the Prudhoe Bay oil field.
Which was massive, right?
Oh, enormous. At the time, estimates were like 10 billion barrels. The biggest discovery in North America, period.
So Alaska suddenly finds itself sitting on this incredible resource.
Exactly. And it happened fast. By September 1969, just over a year later, oil companies paid the state $900 million.
Wow.
And that wasn't even for the oil yet. That was just for the rights to explore.
$900 million. What did that mean for Alaska back then?
Well, put it this way. Their entire state budget was only about $118 million.
Whoa.
The whole state only had maybe 280,000 people. The economy was mostly, salmon fishing. This was just an unbelievable amount of money landing in their lap. The press started calling it Frozen Kuwait.
Frozen Kuwait. Okay, so they get this massive windfall. Did it immediately transform life for Alaskans? Fix roads, build schools, that kind of thing?
You'd think so, wouldn't you? But that's the first twist. That initial $900 million, it was pretty much spent within just a few years.
Spent on what?
Well, it wasn't necessarily graft or anything, but it was just spent on various projects, initiatives, but without any real lasting positive change to people's everyday lives or living standards. Looking back, it was kind of seen as, wasted, a huge missed chance.
Okay, so that must have been a pretty harsh lesson.
Absolutely. It was a wake-up call. The state leadership knew, okay, when the real oil money starts flowing from the pipeline, we need a much smarter plan. A structure.
And that pipeline was the next big step.
Yes, the Trans-Alaska Pipeline. A massive undertaking, cost $8 billion back then, built between 75 and 77. That's what allowed the oil to actually get to market and the serious long-term revenue to start coming in.
Which brings us to Governor Jay Hammond. He saw that initial spending, right?
He did. And he was worried. He really became the driving force behind creating the Alaska Permanent Fund, which got officially set up in 1976.
And this wasn't just some government account they created. It was more fundamental than that.
Much more. And this is key. They didn't just pass a law. The people of Alaska actually voted in a referendum to change their state constitution.
Wow, okay.
And that constitutional amendment did two really crucial things. First, it required that at least 25% of all the state's money from natural resources had to go into this new permanent fund. Locked in.
25% minimum. Okay.
Second, the money in the fund could only be put into investments that generate income. Stocks, bonds, real estate, that sort of thing. Not just sit there. And definitely not be spent on, current government projects.
Yeah.
Protect the principal, grow the fund.
That's some serious foresight, protecting it from future politicians wanting to dip in.
Exactly. It built in that discipline right from the start constitutionally.
So when did the first money actually go in?
February 1977. The very first deposit was, believe it or not, just $740,000.
From less than $1 million to, well, we'll get to where it is now.
Amazing.
Amazing. Something else that seems really unusual is how Alaska gets to keep so much of this oil money. Usually, doesn't a lot of that go to the federal government?
Normally, yes. Mineral rights on federal lands mean royalties usually go to the U.S. Treasury. But Alaska's different. Yeah. There's a law, the Mineral Leasing Act of 1920, and because of Alaska's unique status when it became a state, for resources taken from Alaskan lands, 90% of the royalties, and the royalty rate itself, is at least 12.5% of the value goes straight to the state government of Alaska, not Washington, D.C.
90%? That's huge.
It's massive. And that financial independence, that control over its own resource wealth, is what really empowered Alaska to even create something like the Permanent Fund in the first place.
Yeah.
They had the money and the authority.
So they set up the fund, the money's constitutionally protected, it's starting to grow. Now what? How do the people actually benefit?
Right, that was the next big debate. The fund was making money from its investments. How do you share that profit with the residents?
I could see ideas like maybe state-funded health insurance or help with heating bills because, Alaska.
Those ideas were definitely on the table. Universal health insurance, heating subsidies. But Governor Hammond, he pushed back against them.
Why? They sound like good things.
His argument was about fairness. True fairness. He said, look, some people already have health insurance through their jobs. Heating needs vary across the state. If we do those things, not everyone benefits equally from their share of the resource wealth.
Okay. That's a subtle but important point. So if not those things, then what?
His solution was, well, it was pretty radical at the time. Simple, but radical. Just give a portion of the fund's earnings directly to every single resident. Cash.
Cut checks to everyone?
Yep. Let them decide how to spend it. Hammond famously said something like, let them spend it how they want, even if they want to buy pigeons, and let them fly. The choice should be theirs.
Wow. What was the thinking behind that specific approach?
There were really three big goals,
Yeah.
strategically. One, preserve the main chunk of the wealth for the future, but share some of the earnings now. Intergenerational fairness.
Okay.
Two, force politicians to be careful with other state money. If citizens are getting a direct check from oil wealth, politicians might think twice before wasting other tax revenues or trying to raid the fund itself. It creates discipline.
Makes sense. And the third?
Turn every Alaskan into a direct stakeholder. Make them, as Hammond saw it, the fund's first line of defense. If any politician tried to mess with the fund or reduce the dividend,
they'd hear about it from literally everyone.
You got it. Hammond had this great quote, I wanted to provoke collective greed in the face of selective greed.
Collective greed, that's quite a phrase.
It is, but it captures the political genius of it. By giving everyone a direct, personal financial interest in the fund's health and the distribution, he made the dividend politically untouchable. Sacred, almost.
So the system's in place. When did people start getting these checks?
The first payments went out in June 1982. By then, the fund had grown to about $3.1 billion.
And how much was that first check?
It was $1,000.
$1,000 in 1982 money. Not bad. Who got it?
This is also interesting. It went to every resident man, woman, and child who had lived in Alaska for at least 6 months. Not just U.S. citizens, but anyone legally residing there for that period.
Residency, not citizenship. That's significant.
It is, and that's still true today. And the other key thing is equality. Every single qualified person gets the exact same amount. Doesn't matter if you're a newborn baby or 90 years old, same check.
How does it work now? How do they calculate the amount each year?
There's an annual application process, usually runs from January to March. People apply to confirm their residency. The amount itself is calculated based on the fund's investment performance. Specifically, it's half of the average earnings over the last 5 years.
Okay, so it smooths out the market ups and downs a bit.
Exactly. It provides some stability.
Yeah.
And the payments usually go out by mid-October.
Do you have a recent example? Like, how much was the check lately?
Sure. In 2022, the Permanent Fund Dividend, or PSD as they call it, was $3,284 per person.
Over $3,000. So a family of, say, 5 people
would have received 5 checks. That's over $16,000 for that household, tax-free from the state perspective, though subject to federal tax.
That's a serious amount of money for many families, and you said it's only half the average earnings.
Right. Crucially, they don't distribute everything. A big portion of the earnings is reinvested back into the fund. That's how it keeps growing and stays sustainable for future generations of Alaskans. Protect the principle, remember.
It's an incredible system. But the question always comes up with things like this. Doesn't it just make people not want to work? You know, the lazy Alaskan argument.
It's the classic question, yeah. If you give people money, will they just stop working? It seems logical, maybe.
But what does the actual evidence from Alaska show?
Well, researchers looked into this specifically. There was a notable study published in early 2018 looking at decades of data from 1977 up to 2014.
Yeah.
They found basically no impact on overall employment levels in Alaska because of the dividend payments.
No impact, really?
None to speak of on the aggregate level. The idea that it disincentivizes work just didn't seem to hold up in the data. People kept working.
That really flies in the face of a lot of assumptions about universal basic income type programs.
It does. And what's more, there's evidence it actually helped the economy.
Passive?
Well, people got these checks, and they tended to spend them locally, buying groceries, fixing the car, maybe starting a small side business. That spending boosted revenue for local businesses.
A stimulus effect.
Exactly, which then led to some businesses expanding, maybe hiring more people. So rather than hurting employment, it might have indirectly supported job creation in some sectors.
That's fascinating. So the fund itself, starting from under $1 million, where does it stand today?
It's grown phenomenally. As of late February this year, it was approaching $78 billion.
$78 billion.
Yeah. It's a testament to, sticking to the constitutional rules, having strong governance, and employing really good investment managers through the Alaska Permanent Fund Corporation, that quasi-governmental entity set up in 1980 to manage it professionally.
So today, that fund represents the collective wealth of Alaska's, 730,000 or so residents and their kids and grandkids.
Precisely. It's intergenerational wealth managed for the long haul.
Okay, so just to recap, Alaska finds oil, kind of fumbles the first batch of money, but then learns its lesson.
Big time.
They amend their constitution, set up this permanent fund, lock away a chunk of the oil revenue, invest it smartly.
And then make the truly radical move. Distribute part of the earnings directly, equally, to every resident.
Which turns out not to depress employment and actually helps the local economy, all while building this massive sovereign wealth fund. It really is an incredible story.
It really is. And it inevitably makes you wonder, could this work somewhere else?
Right. You mentioned Hillary Clinton had an Alaska for America idea during one campaign.
She did float that, yeah. Using perhaps federal resource revenues similarly. But it never really got off the ground politically. It's a tough sell nationally, perhaps.
Which brings us back full circle to Hugo Chavez having breakfast in Anchorage.
Yeah.
Given Alaska's success, why didn't he manage to replicate it in Venezuela? He clearly saw the appeal.
I think the reality is Alaska had things in hankers. Venezuela, especially at that time, didn't. You need pretty strong, stable democratic institutions.
Yeah.
You need a certain level of trust in government, relatively low corruption. You need that constitutional framework that everyone respects.
Things that were maybe lacking in Venezuela.
Arguably, yes. Implementing a system that transparently empowers every single citizen with direct cash payments requires a political environment that supports that level of accountability and, frankly, can resist the temptation for political leaders to interfere with the money. Alaska built that foundation through referendum, through constitutional protection.
You couldn't just drop the same model into a very different political context and expect it to work.
It's very difficult. The success isn't just the idea of the fund, it's the whole ecosystem of governance around it. That's maybe what Chavez learned, or what ultimately stopped him. The political will, or perhaps the political stability, just wasn't there.
A really crucial point. It's not just the policy, it's the context. So as we wrap up, thinking about Alaska's really creative way of using a natural resource to benefit everyone directly. Maybe a final thought for you, our listeners.
Yeah, consider this. What resources do you have in your own community? Maybe not oil, but perhaps intellectual capital, unique local skills, community assets. Could any of those be leveraged in some new, innovative way to directly empower and benefit everyone where you live?
Something to chew on. It's about thinking differently about shared wealth. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into the Alaska Permanent Fund. Hope you feel a bit more informed, maybe even a little inspired. We'll catch you next time.